So, how's it going, everyone? My name is Hirsch, and this is Money and Me podcast. In this podcast, you get to see some of the most enticing interviews in the fields of blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT, and whatnot. And today, also, I have one such guest with me. And today's episode is going to be spicier than before because she's a woman entrepreneur, and I would let her do the talking once I'm finished with this orientation. So, if you're hearing my voice for the first time, then please consider subscribing. And after you are finished watching this episode, do consider watching other videos. I'm pretty sure that you would like them too. So without any further ado, let's dive into the conversation. And I would like to introduce Ms. Soniya Ahuja to you. She's the founder and CEO of Orbis86, about which we will learn in the further part of this podcast. But before that, Ms. Soniya, how are you doing? And how is your weekend going?
My weekend's going fairly good. Thank you, Harsh, for having me on the show, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and I hope the day after today also goes great as now. So I would first of all like to ask you about your like take some time to explain about yourself and how you got into this field of metaverse and cryptocurrency in general.
I think I started on the journey of cryptocurrency much before I got into NFTs. And the metaverse, I think the metaverse is still in its very infant and nascent stages. So we'll see a lot of development there. It's quite early to predict where exactly the metaverse will take us. Obviously, we have some concept shows like Uproad that take it to the next extreme, but we are going to see a lot of phases in between before we get to that. In terms of cryptocurrency, my first foray into cryptocurrency, much unlike some of my other friends who were actually mining cryptocurrency back in even as early as 2010 and 2011. I came into cryptocurrency a little late. I think it was in 2015 or 2016 when we made our first purchase when Bitcoin had gone up and then gone down. So, we went ahead and just bought a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum. But honestly, back in 2012, when my friends were saying, hey, you should be mining cryptocurrency. And I thought, what? No, the government is going to shut it down someday. I guess I missed the boat then, which is why when we got introduced to the field of NFTs last year, especially with how NFTs was the word of the year for 2021, I wanted to make sure that we don't miss out on this boat and we leverage this beautiful opportunity that is being presented by NFTs that is going to usher in the era of Web3.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me also, like entry into metaverse and blockchain in general was like that only. I entered pretty late, but the world of blockchain for me is really exciting and full of possibilities. It just opens a new door of universe for you. So yeah, as the name suggests, metaverse. So yeah, now I'd like to move on to a pretty more concrete question, which is about Orbit 86. So I researched about Orbit 86, so it's pretty clear to me what it's about. And it's a really exciting project, but I would like you to tell the viewers what is Orbit 86 about and what makes it different from other competitors in the fields of metaverse and blockchain out there.
Orbis86 as an NFT project, I would say it is a project that uses storytelling as a vehicle to educate, enable, and empower minorities and underserved communities around the globe. In terms of what differentiates us from other NFTs, the first thing I would like to say is unlike other NFTs, we don't have one single base model. So if you have looked at the most famous NFT of 2021, which was the Bored Apes, you would see that they essentially had a base model, which was the ape, and then they just changed some poses like the smiles or some accessories, and that's how people created a 10K collection. More recently, you have seen people use a couple of different base models to create more variations in their 10K collection. We are creating a collection of 86 Orbisons, so that's 8,686 Orbisons. However, we at our core, our theme is diversity and inclusion, and we want our collection to reflect that. And each one of a character looks different from every other character. So we do not have the concept of that one single base model. because our models, they don't just differ in the ethnicities, races, and cultures that they represent, but they also represent different body shapes and types. And once we mint our collection out through the DApp, through the decentralized app that we will build out, our token holders will actually be able to go and set the gender identity of their Arbison. So with these small measures, we are trying to bring in as much of a diverse representation as we can through our little collection. Once the collection has been minted, our token holders will also be able to set backstories for their Arbison. And what we are going to do is we are going to crowdsource all of these stories and create an animated series from it. Besides that, unlike other projects where you just get a PFP, most of the NFT projects are a PFP project. So you get a PNG file or a JPEG file that you can use as your PFP or profile picture. However, in our case, we provide people with the full 3D file, which is a blend file. And our motto in terms of educating people and enabling them to become artists themselves is that we will provide them with this full 3D model that comes with their Arbison. And along with that, we will also be creating some animation kits, which are animation tutorials that will enable anyone who wants to use the Arbison, who wants to explore the world of 3D, to go and animate their Arbison and use that particular animation to maybe even launch their own PFP collection, their own 10K collection, or use that Arbison, animate the Arbison to go ahead and tell their own story. So that is how we differ from a lot of the other projects that are there. I mean, don't get me wrong, the world of Web3, it's all about community. And even if there is a competition, it's a healthy competition. It's not like a dog eat dog world out there in Web3, which is what really excites me about Web3. All the projects that we are working with, they are very eager to help each other out. And as such, even if there is competition, it is good because you get to see how to do better. And it is not a competition where you're trying to eat up your competitor.
Yeah, sure. As you said, Web3 is a community that grows together, and we are still in the start of this technology. We are still in start of understanding this technology, how it works and how it doesn't. So it is also important for us to grow together. If we are like busy in fighting with each other in the start of this technology, then how are we going to grow up? And also there's a lot of stuff going on, as you told about Orbis86. There are some terms like empower, educate, diversity that I will cover in the later part of this podcast also. But before that, I would like to ask a question about NFTs, which is rising in my mind right now. And it has been rising since a long time now, which is like that. How credible and relevant are NFTs in the long term? Because for me, the physical assets have some value which overpowers this digital asset in a certain way. So I would like to know your opinion about how NFTs are gonna counter this physical asset thing, like merchandise or some physical statues that artists provide to the community. So how NFT gonna cope up with that?
So we are actually in the very nascent stages of NFTs, and the application of NFTs that we have been seeing in the past couple of years, it's very closely related to the field of arts. So no doubt everybody is just talking about arts, but as a technology, we're talking about blockchain, right? So as a technology, the concept of NFT can be extended to any place where proof of ownership needs to be provided, which means that tomorrow we might see people's personal medical records being minted as NFTs that are immutable and that the person has full access to. We could see land titles being minted as NFTs, which are immutable, which means no one is going to be able to bribe some clerk in an office to change those land records. You will have complete ownership of the title that you have very rightly paid for. And we will see NFTs extend further in the fields of licensing, subscriptions, any field where digital ownership is required. Now, extending it to the field of art, I would say NFTs as digital asset, if you just think about digital asset and how many digital assets you own, you will realize that we have already moved from the world of physical assets to digital assets a decade or 2 decades ago. Like how many people these days own physical copies of books versus Kindle books or ebooks, right? When that was launched, a lot of people thought it would never overpower the Barnes and Nobles or any of the physical stores. But today, more ownership is in the form of a digital asset. Let's also talk about songs. When was the last time you actually went and bought a CD or a cassette? I don't know how many people literally do that. If people are downloading songs, then most likely they're downloading the WAV files, which again is a digital asset, or they are subscribing to something like a YouTube Music or a Spotify. And in essence, all of them are still digital assets, which you don't technically own, but you pay to get access to that. Or let's even talk about movies. So in the US, for example, on Amazon Prime, you can buy movies. But very few people these days go and purchase DVDs. So owning digital assets, it has been around for a while. The question is, what happens, how credible NFTs are when it's purely driven by hype. So that's one thing that I feel differentiates, and that the hype versus the true utility, that is an interesting conversation to be had. And I would say that when it comes to the hype, if a project is really good, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, they didn't really promise much when they launched, right? I mean, the Bored Ape Yacht Club literally just launched as a PFP project, and their motto was, we are the bored apes, and wherever we go, we will ape in. We want to party. So if you think about it, there isn't a lot of story going on there. However, what they were good at doing was creating that hype and also living up to the hype. That is important. Unfortunately, in the recent months, you've seen a lot of rug pulls and scams, and that even scares me away, right? When I am putting money behind a project, even I have to think whether the founders are going to take the money and run away or really give back to the community. So and NFTs, however, especially in the field of art, since the question started with arts, I think it has a huge potential to really revolutionize how art is owned and also how arts is sold. So I'll take an example of Death Row Records, which was Snoop Dogg's first label, right? Or rather the first label to be launched on NFTs as NFTs period. And if you think about it, if more musicians and producers start doing that, then the label companies are going to have a hard time, because we might think that, hey, oh my god, this album got millions of dollars in sales, but really the artists don't get to see a lot of that money. And unless these artists have at least 5 or 6 hit albums under their name, it's very hard for them to secure like a very good deal with the label companies, because they don't really have that negotiation power. Now, if an artist has a community, the artist has a very nice vehicle to directly sell his or her songs to the consumers. And the best part is that his or her fans, or their fans, they are able to use the NFT as an official proof of ownership and brag about it. That, hey, here I am supporting my favorite artist, and the money just goes back to the artist. So I feel that NFTs as even ownership proof, again, ownership of digital assets, it will stay here, it will stay, it will be here. The only thing that has to be regulated and supervised a bit are all the bad players in the system. Once we get the bad players out, there is a huge potential for this field to evolve into something much better and bigger than what it is today.
Yeah, I'm completely resonating with this, and that's a really beautiful way to put it. Like hype versus the real goodness in a project. And as a blockchain developer and as a cryptocurrency developer, I was really stressed about like, I'm developing NFTs, but I do not know if they are going to survive for long. But now it's pretty much clear because, as you said, NFTs provide you authenticity, gives you freedom as an artist, and gives you ownership of your asset like fully 100%, and like your money is coming to you. There's no like middleman like labels in between. So that's a really good way to put it. And when I was researching, like I've been following Orbis86 for a while now, so there is a word storytelling to empower and educate. So I would like to know from you, how is Orbis86 aiming to use storytelling as a driving force to empower, to educate, with regards to metaverse and blockchain?
So our empowerment and education, it's around the topics of diversity, inclusion, and the underserved communities. And also one of our mottos is to try and create as many 3D artists as we can. Now, as I mentioned earlier, along with each NFT, you will get the full 3D model. But then the question is, what do you do with that 3D model? A lot of people find it cool that, oh, okay, we'll get the 3D model, but they don't really understand what, like how much value that gives versus just getting access to a PNG. So what we want to do is create these tutorials so that anyone, right, anyone can easily pick up the model that he, she, or they have. And looking at these tutorials, they can do some nice, cool stuff with it. We are really early in the world of metaverse, and AR, VR, metaverse, this is going to dominate the next 1 or 2 decades and even beyond that. However, the number of people who even have these skills, it's much lesser. So we want to educate people and empower them to become animators, become artists, and then these could be skills that can actually get them good living wages. In fact, more than living wages, if given how much in demand metaverse and 3D skills are going to be. They already are in demand, and they're going to be more in demand as you have a lot more companies getting into the metaverse space. I mean, if you just think about how Facebook has completely rebranded itself to Meta, so one of the biggest private economies in the world has rebranded itself to align with the metaverse. That in itself should be a big indication of the direction that metaverse is headed into. Now, besides that, through the animation stories that we will create, as I mentioned earlier, we would love to crowdsource stories from our team members. And then these animated series that we create, they would be fantasy series. However, at the core of it, we would be telling people, bringing to the forefront humanitarian values, and we would be talking about how important it is to not just have diverse and inclusive environments to thrive in, but also how beautiful the different cultures that we have around us, how beautiful those cultures are, and how in the absence of a diverse ecosystem, we cannot thrive. We need to be able to respect each other. And the reason why I say diversity, inclusion, and also the underserved communities is fairly simple. Now, take an example. Between males and females, we really don't have a huge conversation about diversity, right? Because in general, 50% of the world's population is male and 50% is female. The ratio in some countries, it's a little askew. However, when it comes to employment, for example, globally, 47% of females 47% of females who are in the working age are employed versus 72% males who are employed. So that is a difference of 25%, which is why we talk about underserved communities as well. We would love to have more women in the field. And then on the topic of diversity and inclusion in the US, which is supposed to be one of the countries that has traditionally, right, been in favor of the LGBTQ community and has easily, there are a lot of advocates here who talk about gender identity, about fluid genders, and so on and so forth. However, even in the 2020 census, 2 million people were not able to identify themselves correctly because we just had male female as an option in gender identity. So there is a powerful quote which goes and says that if you are not counted, you don't count. And that is what is happening to 2 million people just in the US itself, where if they don't identify as male or female, there is no other option for them. So we want to bring to the forefront all of these different issues that these minority communities are grappling with. And hopefully, through powerful storytelling, we will be able to educate people about these problems that generally folks don't talk about because there's always something bigger or some political stunt that's going on that's always in the news. So we want to make sure that these untold stories do not remain untold, that people become more aware of these things, and hopefully through that we all as a community would welcome each other. We all would raise to a point where we do not discriminate at all on the basis of ethnicities, colors, races. In fact, we do not, the only discrimination we probably would have is between humans and animals, perhaps, right? But at a core level, we all identify as humans, and that doesn't happen today. So that is how what we want to do with our characters. We want to not just represent the beauty in all of these diversities, but also use this as a vehicle to unite people. And God knows, you are in India, I am from India, I'm in US, and unfortunately in the past few years we have had the gaps and divisions between people of different colors and religions just widening because of the political situations. And even if you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, humans waging war on humans for what reason? So God knows that we definitely need something else to unite us. And I feel that Web3 is going to be that vehicle where communities will be united, because uh, you are no longer a white or a black or a brown person or an Indian or an American, right? You are an actor on Web3 where a certain level of anonymity allows you and allows others to just focus on your skills and not focus on all of these inherent biases that we have developed over generations.
Hmm. That's really generous, and the way you put in empower and education and diversity inclusion of minorities is pretty good, because here in India, this is on a different level. Like you have explained the condition of US, like how minorities are treated, like 2 million people doesn't even know how they identify themselves. In India, it's far worse, and here in Germany, it's not that much, but still it's there also. So be it US, be it Europe, be it India or Asia in general, it exists everywhere. And it's really saddening, like due to our political structure, due to our societal structure, people are suffering daily because of it. And the way you put in, like educating people about cultures, educating people about diversity is really great. And while doing that, you were also kind of teaching them future skills like 3D, which is really scarce at the present point of time. So it's really commendable. And now we have talked a lot about like this. If we go on this tangent, this is quite philosophical, and that would take like an hour to discuss about it. So I will come back to the point, and I would like to ask you about how can we explain about NFTs to the starters, to the beginners, because me and you, we know about NFTs pretty well, so we can understand this stuff pretty well. But to the viewers who are not so like acquainted with NFTs, how are we gonna like tell them this is gonna work? This is how it is. What is an NFT is the question in their mind while we're discussing these advanced topic like minting NFTs. And also, I would like you to throw some light over what is NFTs for a noob or a starter.
So NFT, it is an acronym for non-fungible token. And in simple words, it's a token that is completely unique. There is just one copy of that token. If I translate it into a real world sort of an example, if you have a dollar, I have a dollar, we exchange a dollar each, then Harsh is left with a dollar and Sonia is left with a dollar. So this is a fungible token, which means there are multiple tokens of the same kind. And Bitcoin, Ethereum, you can think of those things as fungible tokens. However, let's say we are Pokemon collectors, and there are just two unique Pokemon cards. One is for a Pikachu, one is for a Bulbasaur. And I have a Pikachu, and Harsh has a Bulbasaur. And tomorrow we decide to exchange the cards. So now, if we exchange cards, then I will have a Bulbasaur, and Harsh, you will have a Pikachu. And I am assuming here that there is just one Bulbasaur and one Pikachu in the whole wide world. That is an example of a non-fungible token, where once you exchange it, you don't have the same token. At its core, both of them are still Pokemon, but they are just not the same, because you have a Bulbasaur, I have a Pikachu, and then when we exchange, now you have a Pikachu, I have a Bulbasaur, and depending on their rarity, depending on how people value it, and those who have been traditionally exchanging trading cards, they know this better than anyone else. not each trading card is valued at the same price, right? Based on certain traits, each trading card gets a different value. So in NFTs, yes, even though each NFT is one of one, it's unique. However, there could be certain traits that and certain moments that those NFTs are associated with that could impart one NFT even from the same collection. So here we were talking about Pokemon as a collection, right? So perhaps because Pikachu has been the star of the series, the Pikachu Pokemon might be more valuable than the Bulbasaur Pokemon. So accordingly, NFTs also from the same collection, they could all have different values. So in very noob layman terms, that could be an example of NFT. And if people are looking for, because very few people are in trading cards. So if people are looking for one more concrete example, then I would simply go back and say land titles. Because your housing title, your land title, they are perfect examples of NFTs. If you're in Germany, I guess, I'm sorry, I assumed you were in India. So if you have a house in Germany, I have a house in California, and we exchange our titles, then we have to pack our bags and move around the globe, right? Because now those two houses are completely different. So land titles are another good example. And in fact, there are companies that are already working on creating NFTs for land titles. So in a couple of years, you might actually be getting an NFT from your city instead of the whole paper documentation that you could actually easily lose. So now you'll be getting an NFT for your land title.
Yeah, that makes it really easy because how I learned about NFTs is pretty complex and weird. Like, for me, I compare cryptocurrencies to the real money, just a better form and digital. And for NFTs, I used to compare them to non-renewable resources like coal and petroleum. Like they're scarce, so they have value. So I used to compare NFTs with non-renewable resources. That's quite complex and weird and not so simple to explain to a starter. But what the example of Pokemon was very lustig. Okay, did I just say lustig? Because that's the thing about living in Germany, because um, you kind of like your English is not getting better, your German is not getting better, both are getting worse because you are now amalgamating both of the languages. So what I
Yeah,
was saying was,
yeah. And
what?
that's fine. Ich spreche ein wenig Deutsch. So
Oh,
very little, but I do.
this is good. Good to hear. Yeah. So what I was saying was the example of Pokemon was very good and funny at the same time. So it makes it pretty much simple for a layman to get into the world of NFTs, to understand how NFTs work and what is like, yeah, they get the point of NFTs pretty much on a basic level. Now, as we have talked about, as you've told us about Orbis86 has 3D NFTs, now I'd like to ask you about is like, what are your views over metaverse amalgamating itself with AR and VR? Like these are the new technologies that have came in our world. So I would like to ask from you, what are your views over AR and VR with metaverse?
Well, metaverse as a concept was first painted by Neil Stephenson in his novel, right? And the way he visualized metaverse was there's just this one single metaverse, which is like a street, and then you have your single avatar. And let's just assume you have shops on both sides of the street. And in that one avatar, you could go to one shop and there you'd be dining, and you could go to another shop and there you could be shopping clothes. You could go to a third shop and there you might be playing some games, right? So Neil Stephenson's version of the metaverse was a single unified platform where you could jump in and out of different spaces, right? And you can carry your assets with you wherever you go. Now, we are actually still not there, right? Because we don't have a single unified metaverse. What we instead have is different metaverse owned by different entities. So for example, those who are familiar with Sandbox or Decentraland, the assets you procure in Sandbox today, you cannot take them to Decentraland. However, people are working on creating characters, etc., that could be ported across different metaverses. So that would be an interesting thing to see. And I'm pretty sure that a few years down the line, we will have at least some of the newer tech that is being built out that would start becoming cross-compatible with each other, which means the assets that you purchase in one game, in one metaverse, you could actually carry them with you onto another metaverse. And that is where blockchain plays a big role, right? Because if both the metaverses are on the same blockchain, and in fact, in near future, actually, even right now, we are looking at a lot of cross-chain tech, right?
Platforms, yeah.
So with Kronos and whatnot, we are trying to build cross-chain tech. So irrespective of the blockchain, hopefully in near future, if you have certain assets on any blockchain, you will be able to bring them onto the other metaverse, irrespective of what blockchain it is working on. So that definitely is it's actually an amazing feat, when we'll get to that. Also, metaverse as such, I think gaming industry did a huge thing in terms of creating these big immersive metaverses. So right from Age of Empire, which I used to play back in college, and that actually gives my age away. But hey, I am old. I'm 30. I just turned 36. So Age of Empire to NFT, to Most Wanted, NFS Most Wanted, to even the Call of Duty, Counter-Strike. In a way, each of these games had their own metaverses that were created. Now, you were not necessarily navigating them with AR and VR tech, but they did pull you in, right? So it was this whole different virtual reality that people were living in, minus their headsets. Now, with AR and VR being becoming quite popular, not just now with the augment of metaverse, with Facebook rebranding itself as Meta, but AR and VR has been on the rise for over a decade now. And the thing is that the applications of AR and VR go much beyond gaming. So pretty soon you could have everyone just working in a virtual environment where people might not even go to office. I don't know whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it's good in a way because you don't need local teams, right? People could be anywhere in the world. They could be on Himalayas and working, right, with Elon Musk's SpaceX satellites. So they could be anywhere in the world and still be able to come to work. At the same time, if it results into building an environment where people stop talking to each other in the real world, then I feel that is bad. But AR, VR, and this metaverse that is being created, right? They have the potential to not just generate new economies, but also create new ways in which people can interact with each other. So one of the examples that I had quoted at a conference was how in near future, we will be able to train an AI or ML, right? Or rather, I mean, an AI character, right? Which takes my likeness. So if you look at the movie Upload there, they upload a person when he dies. So this won't be that extreme, but I could definitely have my consciousness uploaded to a metaverse somewhere, right? Into this VR environment. And long after I have died, my consciousness can continue to stay there. Now, if you augment that with the new AR VR suits that are being created, what that means is after I die, and I don't have kids now, but let's say if I have kids, after I die and my kids are grown up, if they want to meet me, they could still wear the AR suits and come and meet me, have a conversation with my consciousness, which is going to probably respond in exactly the same way that I would, and also be able to get a hug, which is such a beautiful thing because now with the power of AR, VR, and this metaverse, you're able to talk to people that you wouldn't have been able to talk to if there was just no way to talk to them, unless you obviously believed in ghosts and whatnot. But now you're able to stay in touch with your loved ones. And think about the application for even our soldiers, right? And our veterans, all the military folks who are for months away from their families, right? And with satellite internet being accessible in the remotest areas of the earth, people can now with augmented tech, right? And the reason I say augmented is because just with a VR, just with an Oculus headset, you will not get the same feeling. But with wearable suits and wearable tech that is coming in now, you could actually be able to share more than just sight. You will be able to share the sensation of touch. And those things can completely take us an into a world that is more connected than ever before.
But for me, it's at time really far away from here, because if we can do that, if we can create consciousness, kind of, we are creating life in a way. Yeah. So I guess
And
it's pretty.
that is actually happening right now. I mean, it might be scary, but we know that we actually have a completely new consciousness being created, right? It's not even modeled after someone. So that is already happening. And whether we like it or not, it is going to happen.
Yeah, I guess. And it's also really, dangerous for humans in general, because for now, people are hacking computers, people are hacking accounts, but then they can hack you out. So that's pretty much like devastating for an
Yes.
individual.
Yes, yes. No, I agree. Unfortunately, with any tech, right, no matter what that tech is, like when the nuclear fission discovery was done, it wasn't to create a bomb and drop on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? Unfortunately, with any tech that is created, people do find a way to abuse it. And that is just sad. But what we as a community need to do is encourage better use of technology than trying to completely kill it. So thankfully, with DAOs and with so DAOs stand for decentralized autonomous organizations. But I feel that if we have conscious people in the DAOs, people who will look at things ethically, emotionally, and not just trying to make money out of things, right? Which is what also excites me about community ownership, because when you have multiple people own something, it's not always about the money. People become more conscious, right? They are more empathetic. So hopefully we can bring that empathy in and try to create governance in such a way that the bad actors are kept away from the system. But you are right, there is no guarantee that hackers won't hack their way into the system. That can happen. However, when I say that a copy of my consciousness could be there, it's not necessarily me implanting a chip in my brain, for example, right? But it's just that let's talk about GPT-3, right? Which is an algorithm that has been trained on like not terabytes but petabytes of data from the internet, right? So today, if I have a lot of videos of me speaking and articles that I've published and stuff, and if I feed that to some engine like GPT-3, there's a fairly good chance that with the right input data, that engine can start outputting sentences that would feel like I have written them, right? So it's that alter ego, that alter consciousness being created that I was referring to. But you're right, in the longer run, you're absolutely right to be worried about how people could hack into things, and we would have to somehow try and be smarter than those hackers, which I know is easier said than done. But I feel that we will also have better cybersecurity measures in place in order to combat this. But before those measures are put in place, we are going to have things getting hacked. So yes, we have to be cautious about it in general, right? With the anonymity comes a huge risk of being dealing with unethical people. So that's definitely a word of caution that we should be giving out to everyone in the community, that guys, when dealing with NFTs, when dealing with anything on the blockchain, do your own research and do a lot of research before you put your money anywhere, before you hit on sign on MetaMask on any website that you go to, right? So you are right, and you're absolutely right to be afraid of something like that. But instead of being afraid, we need to probably think about how do we combat it, because
Mhm.
these things are happening whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that's gonna happen with every technology. Like there's always a way to hack it if you're programming it. So yeah, there's always a scope of hacking it. And things like Neuralink and things like uploading yourself to the cloud um, doesn't make much sense to me, because what we are doing is providing a computer with data. Yeah. So it's like feeding someone to memory. And there's something special about humans, which like humans doesn't only rely upon memory, rather there's something like consciousness. So I think that would be the biggest challenge in ensuring how to make consciousness out of this memory, because what we are doing is providing the data, how we think, how we pronounce words. That's just data, but that's not how we learn things. That could be the biggest challenge, I guess.
You are absolutely right. In fact, a lot of research is already being done in the field of EI, which is emotional
Yeah.
intelligence. Right now, what's separating, you have an excellent point that what's separating us as humans from machines is not our cognitive capability, right? Because machines probably have better cognitive capabilities than we do today. It is our emotional quotient that is separating us from the machines, which makes us a human. So there is a whole field of EI that is emerging, and scientists are doing their research there, where they're looking at how do you make machines capable of being more ethical, right? Being more emotional. I think there would be pros and cons to that as well, right? Because what if we get into an era of iRobot where the machine then thinks that, oh, you know what, humans are bad for the entire planet Earth. We need
That
to go and
happened. That
eliminate
happened,
all humans.
with Facebook. That happened. Like they were coding some robots and they created their own language and started talking with
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, but they were not talking about eliminating humans
Yeah.
at that time. Facebook shut it down because they were so scared. They essentially removed all the filler words. When we talk to each other, we use a lot of words, and a lot of the words, that's why we have the helper verbs, and we have a lot of conjugations and whatnot that we use just to make it sound more beautiful, I guess, or
Yeah.
also to make it a little more clearer in terms of the message we are communicating. But the machines, they thought that, oh, all of this fluff is not needed. So they created their own language. And obviously, uh, people were scared.
Yeah.
But I don't think they were trying to kill anyone at that point, but they were definitely creating better
Smart enough.
systems than we did.
Yeah. We are again going to a philosophical tangent, so I would like to bring us back. And I would like to ask about Orbis86. Are you aiming to incorporate AR and VR in Orbis86?
Yes, so there are two offshoots from Orbis86. As an NFT project, we would continue to work on the animated series that I spoke of. But sometime this year itself, we are also launching a platform that we are calling the Squarespace of 3D websites. So what we would like to do is present information in 3D form. I think our website browsing experience has been the same for decades, at least for 2 to 3 decades, right? And now with our infrastructure being better and with browsers being able to handle 3D spaces much better, what we are planning to do is present information in a 3D format. And what that means is your web browsing experience can be completely transformed. And now, besides accessing that information through your browser, you will also be able to access it through your VR headsets, right? Through AR apps on your phone, and so on and so forth. This year itself, we would probably get to a point where we would be able to completely replace in websites that have static information. And then as we continue to grow, we want to bring in a lot of different integrations so we could get to a point where we become a platform that can completely replace our old website building tools that we have.
That's exciting. And you know what's more exciting? I have a startup idea which relates to somewhat like this, creating like 3D websites and all.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
yeah, changing the web experience using 3JS and all. So, yeah. And what's even more exciting than that is Snoop Dogg. So, I would like you to tell us about the collaboration of Orbis86 with the Snoop Dogg. I'm a big fan of rap and hip hop, so I would love to know about it.
Well, we were extremely honored, blessed to also, get in front of Snoop Dogg. I wouldn't call it that much of a collaboration than saying that, hey, Snoop loved our art and he essentially, endorsed us in a way, because we took our NFT to him and we told him that, hey, Snoop, this you will see me wearing a Snoop Dogg t-shirt. So we had this 3D NFT that we showed it to him, and he signed a bunch of posters for us. And in, how people can just transfer things to his wallet, and he doesn't, he actually hates it. So in our case, we haven't minted the NFT yet, but we told him that, no, this is what we've created for you, and we would love to gift it to you. We would love for you to be an Orbis one. And he was like, yo, this art is so dope. So he liked it. And thankfully, he signed a bunch of posters for us. He loved the art. And then we are in conversation with his team, so we would be presenting this to him when it is minted. And it's extremely a moment of extreme pride for us, right? Because Snoop sees a lot of art, and for him to appreciate, he's one of the biggest NFT whales out there. So for him to appreciate our art and truly appreciate it, because we had sent in the posters before I met him for signing. So when I showed it to him on an iPad, he knew, because his immediate reaction was, oh, so those posters were created by you guys. And I said yes. So he loved it even when he was signing the posters and stuff. So I am just our entire team, we have a team of 20 plus working on the project, so our team members were really excited about it. And a shout out to our lead developer Suvigya, who actually spent a fair amount of time in trying to bring Snoop Dogg to life, so much so that Snoop really loved it. So a shout out to him as well.
I would like to ask, what does Orbis 86 aim to provide to the community?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, right, our aim is again to serve the underserved, right, serve the minorities, and also educate, empower, enable our community members. So the first thing that we're providing is the full 3D model and then the animation kit that I spoke of, which hopefully people can learn from it, and they will be able to translate those skills into more meaningful life skills, right, which enable them to make money from becoming an animator or becoming a 3D artist. Then in addition to that, once we mint out the animated series that all these beautiful characters that we are going to try and collaborate with gaming companies to license out these characters. A lot of the times, because the characters look like game characters, we get asked that, hey, are you guys going to be using them in games? And then I have to say, not really, and we don't want to actually put a game on our roadmap, because a half decent game takes $30 million to $50 million to build out, right? And if you really want to become something as big as a Halo, or even one of the Counter Strikes or Call of Duties, you're going to end up spending millions, right? Like literally 100 million, half a billion, I don't know, like millions of dollars in marketing, and also years in building a good game that people would actually enjoy to play. So instead, what we want to do is actually try and get licensing deals, right, with the gaming companies, and license out these characters. And then the money that comes from that, we try to bring it back to the community. Similarly, even with our animated series, the idea is that we create some nice animated series and take those show reels, right, before we actually create the series. We take the show reels, or maybe even just have one episode that we take to the OTT platforms, and then try to cut a deal with the OTT platforms. And again, if that goes well, then we're talking about a few $1 million of deals in that. So that money again that comes back to us, we find out a way to bring it back to our community. Now, the reason I'm saying that we have to find out a way is because I know that there are NFT projects that say, hey, for every 1 Ethereum that you've spent, we will pay you 2 Ethereum back, right? But in the US, when you're doing that, you actually are a security. You're no longer an NFT as a utility token. And before you make such promises, you have to ensure that you have all the right clearances you need from the SEC, which is why we will, if we have to give money back to the folks, and if a security token is a way to go, then at that point we will figure out those details. We're already talking to our attorney in order to iron out some of those kinks. However, the money, time, effort that is required to deal with the SEC at the moment it's really not something that we are focusing on, but we will focus on it as soon as we get to that point where all of these deals that we are trying to cut out, they start generating revenue, and then we bring that back to a community. Now, besides that, we are partnering with a couple of nonprofits that are focused on helping out people that belong to different minorities. There is a nonprofit that we are planning to work with, donate 3 to 5% of the total amount that we raise from our primary sales to the nonprofits. And these nonprofits, they are either helping out developmentally challenged artists, or they're helping out artists that belong to minority communities like LGBTQ, BIPOC, or even artists that are terminally ill. And besides that, we will also be asking our community which nonprofits they would like to donate to, get a vote going, and then donate to those nonprofits. Now, this is just from primary sales, but even from a secondary sales, we will be donating maybe 0.5% to 1% of a secondary sales as well to nonprofits. So that is how we plan to give back to the community. Once we have our money coming in, we also want to create this academy around animation and 3D artists and try giving out scholarships to people to learn. So that is our plan. Again, giving back for education, giving back to enable these minority communities. We want to focus on that. And we already have a few folks in our community who are from Africa and from India. So we would probably be focusing some effort in those regions as well, because we know that, these regions they see more adversity than a developed country like US. So we are working with nonprofits here, but we would also be looking at working with nonprofits around the globe. And hopefully through that, we can give back to the community as a whole, but also to our token holders through the royalties and through the revenues that we get from the licensing deals, from the animated series. We hope to give that back to our community members. So I'll give an example. This is not the only thing that we're doing. So for example, there is a conference, TICON, that we are working with, and it is a big conference. Last year they had 33,000 people who attended it virtually, and this year, just the crypto and NFT track, you have Randy Zuckerberg, who is a speaker. You have Sandeep Nailwal, who is a speaker. Sandeep is the co-founder of Polygon. You have Justin Khan, the co-founder of Twitch, and now the co-founder of Fractal, who is a speaker. And for this conference, the virtual tickets were $99. And for everyone in our community, because we haven't even minted yet, to everyone in our community, we are providing a code through which they can get this ticket for free. So we will constantly, we are doing this even before we have minted, right? So we will be constantly looking at bringing something back to our community. But the animated series and the gaming licensing structure that I spoke of, I think those would be the bigger value chunks that we could get, that we could construct for our community members, so we all as a community could prosper.
Amazing, stupendous, I would just say. And she said it, you heard it. So after you're done watching this episode, do check out Orbis86 if you want to empower and educate yourself while diversing yourself. So it was nice talking to you, Sonia, but before ending this podcast, I would like to ask you if you have any ending note to give to all of the viewers of this podcast.
Well, in line with our values of diversity and inclusion, right? What I would like to say is, if you guys are newbies and trying to learn about the project, obviously Coin Republic is doing a great job of educating people, but I would welcome all of you to come and join our Discord. Our Discord is discord.gg/Orbis86. So come to our Discord, because we create a lot of educational content for newbies, and we talk about diversity and inclusion. So our content is not just exclusive to our token holders. Well, yes, of course, we're trying to create value for them, but we value every single person who is there in our Discord server, who is a part of our community. And if you want to learn about Web3, about NFTs, and even cryptocurrency, feel free to come join on our Discord and talk to us about it. And the only last note I would say is, this life is too short for us to hate anyone. So my only parting message would be that, guys, we are all part of one religion, and that religion is humanity. So treat everyone with love, treat everyone with respect, and don't laugh at those who know lesser than you. Help them. Help them to get to the same level that you are, because the satisfaction that you get out of helping others is way more than the satisfaction that you would derive from even becoming a billionaire.
Yeah, so love, laugh, and learn. And it was really a great conversation with you. Like I enjoyed every single moment of it. So it was really great for me that you joined. I'm really thankful. And we had a lot of uh, topics that we have discussed deeply about, but we haven't yet like discussed them too deeply. Yeah, like some philosophical topics like philosophy flow through my veins. So yeah, so we could have discussed them like for an hour long or so, but yeah, time bounds everyone. So but it was still a very insightful conversation, and I hope and I'm pretty much sure that all of the viewers might have also enjoyed this conversation. And if you have any questions, comments, queries, suggestions, feel free to drop them down in the comments. And I'm pretty sure that Sonia would also love to answer any doubts about Orbis 86. Like if you have any doubt, you can just jot them down in the comments down below. And if you want to like visit Orbis 86 social media platforms or website, all of the links regarding that would be mentioned in the description. So if you have any other queries regarding Orbis 86, you can go there also. So this was it for the Money and Me episode this time. I would come back with another exciting episode next time. My name is Hirsch. This is Money and Me podcast. I am signing out.